in 3 years' time.
Czas postawić kropkę nad i. Pokusimy się teraz o krótkie podsumowanie tego, czego dowiedzieliśmy się o sobie.
So to dot the I's, let's now summarize what we've learned about companies in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hello, Bianca, nice to see you again.
Hi.
How are you today?
Nice to see you again. I'm doing great today. How about you?
Our conversation is the last one in our agenda, but last but not least, I would
Last but not least, let's give people something to think about. Crème de la crème at the end.
Yeah, let's summarize what has COVID-19 been teaching us.
I think that there's a massive amount that COVID has taught us, especially in our conversation that I'm going to have with Javier about identity and about integrity of infrastructure. We realize that our systems are broken and there's a lack of digital trust truly built within. So that's what we're going to be talking about around facial recognition.
Great. So virtual stage is yours.
Thank you. Javier, I'm now the pleasure to introduce FacePhi's co-founder and CEO. FacePhi has been a company I've been privileged to know for quite some time now, and I'm proudly sitting on their advisory board. They're working with over 70 banks. I lost clearly count because I asked Javier if he was around 40 today, and he told me no, 70. They're the leading facial recognition biometric in the planet. They've spent 7 years developing this algorithm without making a dime, and now they're taking over the world, all the way in Korea, Latin, Europe, Asia Pacific, and Javier is going to tell us a little bit about the use case that maybe perhaps surprised him or is growing due to COVID-19. Javier, tell us, how has FacePhi's technology been published and used in some interesting use cases that COVID brought to bear?
Okay, Bianca, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to try to share some of the use cases that FacePhi is having today, pre-COVID and after COVID pandemic, in order to know a little bit how biometrics are somehow taking part in our daily lives in the last couple of years, 3 years, I would say. FacePhi is a company specialized in facial recognition and really focused on the financial sector. And specifically, we do have a couple of products. One is authentication and the other one is verification. And somehow we just realized a few years ago that financial sector, when they were applying the digital transformation within the bank, one key point of this digital transformation was to somehow improve the user experience of the end users, of the clients of the bank. How to do that? Obviously, trying to avoid passwords, OTPs, SMS messages, etc., and trying to apply biometrics. Everyone thought that biometric was something that would come probably in the future, but it's true that lately, once that Apple introduced the fingerprint reader on the smartphone and now the Face ID, the biometrics are somehow viewed in a different way, in a different perspective from the end users. And right before the pandemic, the trend of introducing digital technologies related to biometrics and identity on the financial sector was extremely high. So we do have big banks using our technologies in different scenarios, which for authenticate or for ID verification, to withdraw money from an ATM, to opening a new account, or just to verify a transaction with the face or analyzing the ID, OCR, liveness, etc. But having said that, it's true that COVID brought this technology more necessary than before. So what we notice is that COVID has really accelerated the process of using these technologies with the financial sector. We had a lot of projects before the COVID, but after the COVID, it multiplied by 3, minimum by 3. That means that somehow financial entities, they already knew that they needed to do the change from passwords and analogic interactions to digital transactions and contactless solutions. But with the pandemic, it's obvious that somehow they tried to push a lot. So the bank already understood that many of the things that we were telling them years ago about how they should change the interaction between the clients and the bank, It's a reality today, and with the pandemic was just mandatory. To give you an example, we do have in some of the countries in Latin America, the pensionists that before the pandemic, they used to go to the branch office to queue, spend a couple of hours entering in the branch offices, showing the face, showing the ID, and receiving the money, monthly payment. With the COVID, obviously the government, together with the bank and together with FacePhi, we just try to align synergies in order to try to improve this system. And we just developed an app and released in June an app with the capability of these elderly people in order to receive the pension payments. They stay at home, they use the smartphone, they take a selfie, they scan the ID document, and with that, they don't need to go to the branch offices anymore. And the process is so clear and so transparent that everyone is very happy. What I see now is that probably if we started this process within the banks of making this digital transformation, probably would take between 3 to 5 years, not to the bank to understand this strategy, but to the end user to try to adopt these technologies. With the COVID, what we noticed is that we just accelerated these 3 years, and now elderly people, millennials, and many people are seeing that now it's not necessary to go to the branch office anymore, and they want to keep that. That means that right after the COVID, that probably and hopefully will pass in the next year, we won't be going back to the branch offices. That's for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that it's really interesting. You and I met when I was first starting to also evangelize people and the importance of understanding and demystifying, I think is what you talked about. Fear was around biometrics. It came from something criminally inclined and surveillance, and now has become something that has helped many lives, right? And has saved people, banks a lot of money, and enable companies to continue to work. What do you see as a growth, or perhaps something that you think the industry still needs to advance on? I often talk and think about the lack of interoperability between these systems. And facial recognition, most people think that, well, there's so many out there, they're all the same. And they're not. One of the main things that I think it's interesting about what you do is you have liveness in your proprietary algorithm. So explain to people maybe something that you see in the future that we still have yet to crack. Is it interoperability? Is it standard? What's the next big challenge for facial recognition to really be there and in different contexts?
Yeah, well, it's true what you said. I think that it's a movement completely aligned in order to have the identity management with a standard, and facial recognition is one of them. Talking about FacePhi in concrete, FacePhi it's completely out of the use of facial recognition for example, video surveillance. So all the applications that we do have today, what we call ethic biometrics, is that the end user needs to give the approval before using our technology. And we are just building an ecosystem with governments, or public companies, and private companies like financial sector in order to try to have the same database of templates in order to be used to try to improve all the processes. So at the end, the normal person is capable to do different processes by using these biometrics, but with the completely security that the privacy is kept. And always, if he's using the facial recognition, is being allowed previously by this person. So the government cannot use this information for any solution without the permission. I think the way we are going is exactly keeping the balance between privacy and security, but obviously the use of biometrics is something that is here today, and it will come in the future in a much deep way than we have today.
I couldn't agree more. I fell in love with biometrics. Honestly believes the last mile between the human and technology, and is the one thing that truly scientifically connects us and allows us to change the way we look at the world. It allows us to empower individuals and do inclusion if the technologies like yours come to full fruition. And I think we need to educate people a lot when it comes to this. There's a lot of fear-based conversations still in the market. So I think if this conversation interests you in any way, please reach out to Javier or reach out to myself through LinkedIn or follow FacePhi and Talle, and we'll be able to tell you what's happening around this space, because I think there's a lot of room for us to grow and a lot of opportunity. This stuff will save lives in society from financial crime and things. So Javier, other than congratulate you officially for the Santander prize of one of the best vendors of the year, I keep wishing you blessings on blessings, and thank you so much for having this chat with me today here at Impact Poland.
Thank you very much to all of you, and thank you, Bianca, for your invitation.
Bye. Stay tuned, guys. Thank you.